Hey, all right, welcome back. Just zipping right through the first hour here, and a lot of talk about the markets, what's happening, a lot of uncertainty out there. Came into the hour today with the market up almost 300. Now spitting back some of those gains as the market's only up 150, and we'll keep a watch throughout the show today if it can pop its head above 26,000, which will be a very good technical setup, if you ask me. It's just one of my theories, but close below 25 could be bad news. And Bitcoin is teetering on 9,100 here, and below 9, look out. But I think 9 has been locked in. It's been bouncing around between 9 and 10. That's called support. When it's at a range for a while, and when it goes up, if something bad happens and it comes down, it would fall technically to its last support level. So the longer it stays in a range with good fundamentals around it, you're building a solid base for it to rocket up off of. We every Friday get lucky and have our good buddy Michael Johns joins us. He's a commentator, policy analyst, and writer, former speechwriter for President George H.W. Bush, one of the co-founders of the Tea Party movement. And if anybody knows about, starting a movement that changed America, at least put it on a new path, it's this guy. And Mike, it seems like China's really trying to change Hong Kong, and the way they're crushing these activists is really bad news.
Well, we have a president, I think, who, for the first time in a long time, really understands the magnitude and the breadth of the threat that Communist China presents both to the United States and the world. And predictably, I guess, for those of us who have been kind of negative on the Communist Party of China, but maybe shockingly for those who haven't been, they've really been taking advantage of the world's distraction with the pandemic to exert their regional power and influence. The most prominent, as you correctly pointed out, is in Hong Kong, where they have violated a treaty that was signed to provide for Hong Kong's incorporation into China, but to maintain its political independence for 50 years. Halfway through this agreement, the Communist Party, after seeing momentum building in Hong Kong for freedom and for even independence, met in secret, violated this agreement, put forward this national security law that now threatens Hong Kong residents with life in prison for the most vague offenses, including sedition and political opposition, collaboration, or with the Western or other governments. That essentially is designed and may have the effect, in fact, of shutting down what is one of the largest democracy movements of modern times in Hong Kong.
The other thing that's really been, getting to me more and more is, and we've been talking about it, you and I, is this COVID stuff, the COVID cover-ups, and how one day mask, one day no mask, and this kind of pandemic is kind of taking away our rights in a big way. How bad is this cover-up, do you think, Mike?
It appeared horrible a month or 6 weeks ago. It is now emerging to be even worse than we thought it was. The most prominent recent example is the fact that we were all led to believe, the World Health Organization said this, Communist Party of China's spokespeople said this, that they had notified the World Health Organization late into 2020, but they at least had notified them about the transmittability and the pandemic potential of COVID. It now turns out that there really was never any notification to the World Health Organization. And as you and I have talked about before, this organization's been run by a former Ethiopian health minister, not even a physician, who essentially has been operating for quite a long time as a pawn of Communist China. And it's clear that the Communist Party in China did everything it could to contain the pandemic within Wuhan province, while they simultaneously allowed individuals to fly all over the world, including to the United States. With what motive? I mean, I guess the most cynical person would say to actually damage the economies and even the security of foreign countries, including the United States. And, if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess acted irresponsibly or unstrategically. But I think many of us, this administration included, which has really some great China advisors, like Peter Navarro, doing fantastic work, I think really understands that what we've got in the Communist Party of China is what's called an enemy. And we just simply haven't sort of come around over the last few decades to describing it in that way. And it's a different enemy. It's not like the Soviet Union, a traditional, sort of global military power. The military confrontation, particularly in the South China Sea, is increasingly a big part of this. It's been an economic war. It's been a informational and propaganda war. It's been an infiltration war. I mean, what Communist China has done to infiltrate American universities, to establish their so-called Confucius institutes, which have, really provided immense pro-Beijing propaganda in these universities.
Yeah, hey, Mike, what about, lightly reported, if at all, but I've been saying it for months now, you got this Harvard professor who was arrested for taking $5 million from China. He ran the microbiology department at Harvard, and they caught him at an airport, trying to get out of the country. And then two people he was working with in that scholars program turned out to be Chinese nationalists who were actually intelligence agents. So does Harvard have some hand in this? Why would the FBI lock up a Harvard professor who's a microbiologist?
Well, because in essence, we have individuals in some of the most elite universities in our country conspiring and collaborating with the Communist Party of China to violate intellectual property agreements and to share technology secrets and sometimes even national security secrets when these individuals are engaged with the U.S. government. This is a vast barrel of problems that we're only now beginning to unearth. I believe over the next year, incrementally, you're going to see many more of these cases unearthed. The FBI is currently engaged, John, in thousands of investigations in the United States as it relates to collusion with Communist Party officials in China designed to aid Communist China at the expense of the United States of America. So we have a huge issue, and it's a broad issue. I mean, there's almost no component of this relationship that isn't broken, which makes it very difficult. So, for instance, this issue of Hong Kong, I'm sure, is immensely troubling to this administration. But, our trade relationship, this is the largest trade relationship that this country really has from the standpoint of, it's unbalanced. We have, immense problems with it. That's been a big priority.
No doubt. I was doing a piece on this TikTok app that all the kids have, this TikTok app. Turns out that the U.S. government has an advisory out to all military members that they're forbidden to download it on their phones. And people think because TikTok is a U.S. company with a U.S. CEO that it's all not China. But turns out they own TikTok. And when they get in your kid's phone, they get in that phone, they get anything they want, they get into your email, they get into your house, they can get into your alarm system just by getting into one phone on TikTok. 2 billion people in the world have TikTok on their phone. So China actually controls 1/3 of the world's phones right now, which is damn scary to me.
It is immensely frightening, and obviously this, entire new generation of telephones they've been hugely involved in, and we need to be very strong on this issue. And in fact, on TikTok, which is interesting, India kind of set an example there as part of this regional aggression, of which there's multiple components. Taiwan's a part of it. What they're doing with the Uyghurs and the human rights suppression of 2 million people, up to 2 million people that are in re-education camps right now, with threats to Taiwan, the South China Sea, as I mentioned, Tibet, which has been an ongoing issue of suppression. India actually just said, look, we're banning TikTok and a whole bunch of other Chinese products and technologies. The U.S. has a much more complicated relationship, obviously, with Communist China. It becomes more difficult. But these are steps we have to take. If this application, which is broadly used, is not secure to the consumers that are using it, it has to be banned. I just don't. And
no question. No question.
Any technological app or product that's coming out of Communist China at this part, it's sad to say, but you have to be honest about it, is it cannot be trusted at this juncture, at the state of this relationship. And I will say this, you might say, well, are relationships deteriorating on Trump's watch? No, it's just that Trump is unearthing, beginning to talk about issues that have been going on for 30
years. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hey, all right, we got to pick it up again next week. Mike, thanks so much. That's Michael Johns, co-founder of the Tea Party, speechwriter for George H.W. Bush. And Friendly Friday continues with a special guest right after this.